The outlook of the Nigerian oil and gas industry post IOC divestments and exits, challenges and opportunities. Our spotlight is on this topic for the Topical Issues Workshop. Somebody once said that with the exits of the IOCs, if you go and bring any foreign company to come into the business, it will still be those of the size of Seplat's and Watersmiths and Aradels that will come as foreign companies. So all the support they need, the independence in Nigeria should be given to make the most of the divestments. But the experts will tell us what their take is on this topic. To kickstart it, let's welcome our council chairman one more time to open this Topical Issues Workshop. Let's welcome Mr. Salahuddin Tahir.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll start by apologizing. I was just explaining to the panelists that, we've been running this for years, and we have to manage 3 days. One of the programs that always starts off a bit late is the TIW, because of the opening ceremony, the exhibition, and then the lunch. We tried as much as possible to, ensure that it started by 1:30. We lost, 15 minutes because Richmond started speaking, and I really have to apologize on behalf of SPE. We intend to keep to time, and we don't want to keep anyone waiting. And a commitment here is that we will really see what we can do, again, because we tried, to ensure that in 2025, this program starts by 1:30. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you again to today's discussion. Really an important topic, not only for Nigeria, but Africa as a whole. The global energy landscape is changing, and we all know that. In Nigeria, we're witnessing a phenomenon that happened decades ago in the North Sea, where you see the majors exiting and the indigenous moving in to consolidate and take position. The Nigerian oil and gas industry has long been a cornerstone of the nation's economy. It has contributed significantly to government revenues and played, of course, a vital role in shaping the economic trajectory of the country. With this recent changes and exiting of the majors, as we would call them, the trend has, of course, sparked concerns and raised questions about the future of the petroleum industry. Concerns, but in any opportunity, you can have an upside, you can have a downside. So what does it portend for us in Nigeria? So we have a very high-powered panel that would discuss today. On a lighter note, I just want to, just single out Larry here. We started our career together, and we've always been, moving shadow to shadow. And I'm glad that he's also part of this panel. So from operational disruptions to potential job losses, the effects of these divestments are far-reaching and cannot be overlooked. Additionally, an industry holistically reliant on the expertise and resources of these major players will now need local companies to reposition itself to fill the void left behind. And for those of us that were on the exhibition, so you were there with us, you would clearly see that trend. You would see indigenous companies positioning themselves to take off. And it's quite exciting. So amidst these challenges lie a landscape ripe with opportunities. The divestment and exits present a chance for local operators and small independent companies to step into the spotlight and drive innovation and growth within the industry. Nigeria's oil and gas sector can be revitalized through increased indigenous participation, technological advancements, and strategic partnerships. We've been hammering on collaboration right through our events in SPE for the year. Collaboration, 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 and we've been walking the talk. We've been collaborating with NAPE, AEC, Pattern, NGA, and the likes. Moreover, with the global energy transition gaining momentum, there is an opportunity for the industry to embrace cleaner energy solutions and sustainable practices, positioning Nigeria as a leader in responsible energy production. For those of us that were here in the opening session, you heard the GCO of NNPC. He mentioned LNG initiatives. And, it is really gladdening because we are actually pushing through to achieve, and expand our LNG capacity. I'm sure you know of Train 7. We have a couple of floating LNG initiatives that will come to fruition, and even mini LNGs in the country. This is unprecedented. And I'm sure in the next 3, 4, 5 years, we will live to see it mature to fruition. These are long-term projects, of course, and they need those minimum of 3 years and above to be actualized. So as we look ahead, it is imperative for all relevant stakeholders, government, industry players, and the local communities to collaborate and chart a path forward that addresses the challenges while seizing the opportunities presented. This will require strategic decision-making, investments in technology and human capital, and a commitment to sustainable practices that ensure the long-term viability of the industry. For those of us that were here this morning, I announced the theme for 2025. It might surprise some of you why we have human capacity in there. And be there in 2025 and you will understand why we think that human capacity is worth looking at in a conference such as ours. In conclusion, the outlook of the Nigerian oil and gas industry post-IEC divestments and exits is marked by both challenges and opportunities. It is a pivotal moment that demands strategic vision, resilience, and a unified effort to steer the industry towards a sustainable and prosperous future. By navigating the challenges and embracing the opportunities, Nigeria can continue to be a key player in the global energy landscape, contributing to economic growth, job creation, and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned, keep your ears open. You would, I'm sure, get huge benefit from our array of panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Salaudin Tahil, Council Chairman, SPE, Nigeria Council. Onwards now to the panel itself. Let's begin the business. First off, on the panel is the Chief Upstream Investment Officer of the NNPC Upstream Investment Management Services, Mr. Bala Wunti, who is not able to join us but has sent a reputable representation whom the council chair spoke about earlier. He is General Manager JV for NAICE. Let's welcome Olarewaju Igadon. You're welcome. Next, he's joined by an industry expert with years of experience and is currently overseeing the development and production of Nigeria's hydrocarbon resources. He has an extensive reservoir engineering experience. Executive Commissioner, Development and Production. Let's welcome Engineer Eronase Amadasu. You're welcome. Next is an industry expert who has a background in investment banking, but has since brought that into the industry, helping companies raise capital and develop resources for the benefit of the country and the industry. Currently, he's the managing director of one of the emerging forces of the industry, Topical Energies Limited. Let's welcome Ofoma Joseph Emmanuel. To reduce your disagreements and encourage more of conversations means that you need to have the right contract in place. And if you must have the right contract in place, you need a learned gentleman to do that. So on our panel, we have a learned expert on our panel who currently is a partner at the law firm of Olaniwon Ajay LP, one of the foremost commercial law firms in Nigeria. Let's welcome Folashade Oluyade. You're welcome. Next, we'd like to welcome the Managing Director of Matrix Energy Exploration and Production Company, a subsidiary of the Matrix Energy Group, one who has practical leadership experience that covers over 2 decades. Let's welcome Dr. Bukola Olushola. You're welcome. Next, we welcome another with over 2 decades of experience in upstream oil and gas segment of the energy industry. During his time in his current position, he has led his team at Onda Energy Resources and has led them efficiently to become one of the non-operated venture managers and so on and so forth. But this afternoon, he is the General Manager Commercial Onda Energy Resources. Let's welcome Akin Bambo Ibidapo Obey. This name is connected to a vice chancellor one time. Is it the same family? It's not me. It's not. You say it's not me, though. We know. Thank you very much. Okay. Fantastic. So we are now set for the conversation. And who is the captain of this ship who will sail it for us in the next hour or so and bring us to a conclusion, as our council chair has spoken about, is a senior lecturer at the Department of Petroleum Engineering and Petroleum and Gas Engineering, and an assistant director at Emerald Energy Institute at the University of Port Harcourt. Let's welcome Dr. Toyin Oduntola. You're welcome. Please, for questions during this session, you can only engage with them via our app or our question card, which our hostesses can pass around. I think at some point we would leave information on the screen for you real quick. How can we do that, Audion? Can we do that? Or if we can just put on the screen how they can engage with the panel as they're settling down. We'll do that later, yeah? Fantastic. So moderator, ma'am, is all yours from here. Please, let's give them one more round of applause as we get set to learn from their wealth of experience.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's panel discussion. Sorry, just give me a second, please. My name is Toyin Odutola, and I'll be moderating this session. These apps. Okay. Set. Okay. So today we'll be talking about the outlook of the Nigerian oil and gas industry post IOC divestment. We'll look at the challenges and opportunities, and it's my pleasure to serve as your moderator. The global energy landscape is undergoing significant transformation, with international IOCs, international oil companies, otherwise known as IOCs, divesting from fossil fuel. And then in Nigeria, IOCs are selling off their land assets and shallow water assets due to environmental concerns, security concerns, and economic concerns as well. According to oilprice.com, Nigeria has already seen about $21 billion worth of assets divested by 2023, that's last year. So you see, this is a huge amount of money. Therefore, the role of companies that are purchasing these divested assets is becoming more crucial, and that's why we are having this conversation today. So today, during our conversation, we will explore the environmental, economic, and security concerns and implications of this transition. We will also discuss the financing options available for DOCs and how regulators can support this divestment process. Additionally, we'll delve into the strategies that Nigerians can adopt to not only survive, but to thrive in this emerging landscape. Who knows, this divestment may just be the opportunity to foster innovation, enhance local expertise, and drive sustainable growth in the energy sector. Thankfully, we have with us today a distinguished panel of experts who are seasoned professionals at their various professions. So they are coming to this panel with various viewpoints, and they will be sharing with us from their personal experiences and the experiences of their organizations, how this divestment is affecting the country. And I also have here distinguished members of the audience, and like you've been told, there's an app. We would like you to be part of this conversation. Your views are very important to us. Your views will help enrich this conversation. Thank you. So I'll be calling on my panelists to give maybe a 3-minute overview of this topic. And I'll be starting with the lady, Mrs. Folashade. What do you think about this topic, the outlook of the Nigerian oil and gas industry post-IOC divestment and exits?
So just to say that you didn't disappoint me. I knew you were going to say ladies first. So thank you very much to you, our moderator. And of course, I'm very happy to be on this panel. When I saw this topic, it was clear in my mind that I don't think there's any time that is so apt, for such discussions. I mean, I have been privileged to work on a number of, these transactions, these divestments going on. And to be honest, I've been more on the transferee side, that's the buy side. But then, there is just a lot to learn. So the topic, challenges and opportunities post-divestment. I think I'll start from maybe sharing what I think are the opportunities that I see, or that I think abound, in the sector. A lot has been said. The IOCs have been here for decades. They've milked, permit me to use that word, the industry, and now they think it's high time to go, right? Of course, a lot of reasons have been cited for their divestment. Initially it was, of course, security issues. You've alluded to environmental concerns, and all whatnot. And then later it was, now the policy is now changing. We are moving to cleaner sources of energy, They need to, sort of move their strategy towards, cleaner energy sources, and so they have to divest. No problem. Thankfully, we've been having participation by indigenous companies as far back as maybe 2010, thereabout. And going by the examples of the early entrants into the sector, we've seen a lot of success stories. The Sepplats of this world, the Walt Smiths of this world, they're there. We don't need to mention all of them. Opportunities abound, value creation, job creation, capacity building, the ability to unlock, these stranded assets, so to say. And somehow I thought to myself, when you have more indigenous participation, just maybe we can begin to see more or less of restiveness in those, those communities. Maybe there'll be more, and should I say, welcoming when they see that, it's now we, that we're doing these things. So the opportunities abound. And of course, the challenges. And I think one challenge that, would quickly jump at me, at least from my experience, is, the access to finance and to funding. There was a time, or there was, some move away by the traditional financiers, the banks, private equity investors, and all those from, financing oil and gas assets. But I think in recent times, we are now seeing, again, some sort of willingness, to participate and to fund. But when these DOCs, get these assets, they need the financing, right, to unlock the value, to develop the assets. And so it's critical that they're able to access, the financing. So that's one challenge. I mean, thank God for the...
challenge, yes.
Yeah. I'm talking about the challenge, yeah.
Okay.
And so, thank God for the initiative for the African Energy Bank and all those things, which is supposed to sort of help in that regard. But hopefully we'll see more, participation. Access to funding is critical. And, there's also the need for indigenous companies to sort of, align their strategies with what would be favorable or attractive to international investors. Things around ESG concerns, and, all those things that they're looking at, when they want to see whether they need to invest in, things that, those IOCs had, without, without blinking your eye. And, they were able to get enough, in that regard.
Okay.
And sorry, just one more point I'll just make on challenges, sorry,
Sure.
is on the issue of host communities. And, I mentioned earlier on that maybe as we see more indigenous participation, maybe you see less of the restiveness. But then this is a critical issue that DOCs then have to develop strategies on how to, work in these communities to ensure that they get, optimal value, from this.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Folashade. I hear you. You said about the opportunities, the job that this divestment is bringing. You talked about how hopefully we'll have less restiveness in the communities, and we're hoping that all of this will happen. I'm coming over to you, Mr. Ufoma. Chapal Energies was in the news recently for entering a sales and purchase agreement and getting some percentage from an onshore asset in the Niger Delta. So what do you think about this divestment happening? What's your view, and what's the view of Chapal Energies?
Well, thank you, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak here. I think in order to properly understand this, I think we also need to look at it within the context of what's happening in the global energy space. So as an industry, there's a lot of movement and a lot of change that's happening. And if you look at a lot of the other developed markets, developed energy markets like the US, Brazil, etc., you see that there is a flight to quality or portfolio high grading. And this is where energy companies historically were given value based on the reserves, 2P reserves that they had available to them. And that was always a function of evaluation. Now the industry has changed and people are looking at cash flow and yield. How profitable are your projects? What's the minimum IRR per project that you are investing in? And the trigger for this essentially is a return of cash to investors. Investors are beginning to look at the industry more like they look at the tobacco industry and to say, well, for the risk-reward profile, I want to see a more consistent dividend. And if you follow just the natural resources space in general, it started out with the mining industry a couple of years ago, and it's now trickled down into oil and gas. So it's not unique to Nigeria. We're in a space that is constantly evolving, and there's a flight to quality, and there's a flight towards more cash yield over time. It's less about how many, what's the reserve base that you can book. It's how profitable is your project. Over and above that is the overlaying ESG and decarbonization drive. And it's having a multiple effect. There's money that's leaving the sector. There's institutional money that's leaving the sector on an aggregate basis. And then there are investors that are coming into the sector, but they're coming into the sector with very specific requirements. And so the net effect of this is that we are going to see in the future going forward fewer but better projects. We are going to see projects that are either carbon neutral or on a pathway to net zero over time. And you will see projects that are profitable through the cycles. And by profitable through the cycles, people are less interested in, what your break even is or what the oil price will be. They'll ask, can you make money at $20 a barrel, at $40 a barrel? I know the oil price will move, but I want to see your baseline profitability. So within this global shift, Nigeria, of course, being a unique, we occupy a unique space in Nigeria. We've had 50 years of, or more than 50 years of hydrocarbon production. This is one of the few countries in the world where you had all major IOCs at one point in Nigeria, and there are very few countries that can speak to that legacy. So it's only natural that there will be a lot of opportunities as people start to high grade. And my sense, or our sense, is that even with the local companies, at some point, you will also see a turnaround where companies start to, focus on certain assets as opposed to others within their portfolio. So this is a trend that we see in the industry. Chapel Energies, we've been in the news. We were fortunate enough to be able to transact on 2 very interesting portfolios. We're going through that process with contemporaries in the space. There's a lot of support that's coming from NUPRC. So I want to thank Engineer Neresi here for all the support on the regulatory side, and also the support from NUIMS, who is our senior partner on the back end. They're very quiet, but you feel the effect. So this is the new normal. This is the way the energy industry is going to evolve. I'd like us to think about us as a global industry, not just Nigeria. We are being affected the way other stakeholders are being affected as well.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ofoma. This is our new normal, so let's look for ways to adapt and make the best out of this moment. My next question will be to Mr. Ibidapo Obi. Wando, I've known Wando since I was in the university. I've been hearing Wando. And I know that Wando has also been very active during this divestment process. I know they recently acquired 100% shares in a divested asset. So I'd like to hear your view about what this divestment means to you, and what are the opportunities or what are the challenges that this divestment is bringing to the nation. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much for that. I think I'll just go off of what Ufoma has already said. He's touched up on a lot of the points, so maybe I won't use my full 3 minutes. But I'll start with a very short story that just came to my mind. We're doing topical issues, as everybody knows. We have the Olympics ongoing. A lot of people will remember, well, I'm sure all of us in the room will remember the Nigerian football team of, I think it was Atlanta 96, that won the gold, or Kocha, Kanu, all of them. Seminal moment for us, one of our greatest Olympic performances. We beat all the best teams in the world. What people may have forgotten is that that team did not start being great that day. In 1994, they performed very well at the World Cup. All those players were world-class Nigerian players. So it wasn't in 1996 when they won. And I like that because, Ufoma said, we've been producing oil in Nigeria for over 50 years. The moderator said she's been hearing about Owando since, well, for a very long time. I say that to say this. We have arrived where we are in an organic manner. It's really an evolution, a confluence of opportunity and preparation. The companies you see today have been preparing for a long time. In Nigeria and in our industry especially, we always talk about technology transfer, knowledge transfer. We've been transferring this knowledge for decades. The government has been extremely active in promoting this. It hasn't just been words. We look at a lot of things as words, but there's been action to back it up. We had a marginal field bid round, I think 2001, that's 23 years ago. So when Nigerian companies were given an opportunity to prove they could do it. So technically, we've been doing this for a while. We're at a point now where the IOCs, respectfully, have to leave. It's not a choice. You can say energy mix, etc. They are leaving the onshore and the shallow water because they have realized that maybe the indigenous companies can do it better. For us, we look at it as an opportunity and an opportunity, not a challenge and an opportunity. It's an opportunity and an opportunity on a global stage to prove, like the 96 Olympic team, that you are as good as anybody and you have all the experience, and this time around, it's time to show it. I think I'll just leave it there.
Thank you so much. Yes, I really love the comment you made about the IOCs believing that we can do it, and that's why they are leaving the shallow waters and the onshore assets. I'll be moving to Dr. Bukola. Matrix Energy has been known for some downstream operations, and recently they are looking at the upstream operations. What's your take on this divestment going on? Just your view.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Toyin. And good afternoon, SB Chairman and distinguished colleagues in the industry. From the Matrix point of view of this ongoing divestment, we believe it's a good thing that is happening to the indigenous players in the industry. The marginal field is an entry strategy for us because we know we can start small, but we can't stay small. So at the moment, we are looking at, we've taken 2 of our fields to extended well tested, what some of you will call first oil. And at the moment, we're looking at acquiring bigger assets in the industry. But to speak more on the divestment, you can't force an operator to continue to operate an asset that does not align with their business vision anymore. It is important that we respect the business vision. If the business vision is to focus on deep waters and gas assets, then we need to approve the divestment process on time so that the acquirer can commence full development of that asset. Because if the divestment process takes a very long time, the current operator would have stopped investing on that asset, and then you would start to experience decline in oil and gas production. And as a nation, we are talking about contributing to the national production of Nigeria so that we can get more revenue, and that would help the economy. So one of the ways around that is for the regulator to probably issue a conditional approval to the new acquirer to start operating this asset so we don't experience decline in the productivity of these assets while the regulator continues to carry out their due diligence on this asset. It's also important for us to know that with the divestment, it's creating a lot of opportunities for indigenous players, but we have few personnel that are quite experienced to manage all these opportunities. It therefore means that operators need to start developing their own talent pool of engineers. Just the same way we have the likes of Shell having SITP and other IOCs having their own training programs, indigenous oil companies also need to start training their own employees so that within a very short time, they're also able to start taking over the operation of some certain leadership positions within the industry. Because whether we like it or not, with this divestment, some of the expatriates or the experts in the industry would also leave Nigeria and go elsewhere. So it therefore means that we need to continue to develop our own talent pool so that we can efficiently develop the asset. And also, and those are my final remarks on this, the entrance of indigenous players into the industry has also helped us to understand that indigenous companies can drive oil and gas development in Nigeria. And we've seen the likes of Seplat and Platform and some other indigenous players investing in gas infrastructures and helping us to commercialize our gas assets, which in previous years they were stranded assets. So for the new players like Matrix, for instance, we are also interested in responsible asset development, which means while we develop our oil assets, we are also interested in commercializing our gas assets from the beginning so that we can generate revenue for the company, also for the economy, and create job opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bukola. I like the point you said about training our own engineers, and I'm hoping that your company will collaborate, since our council chair said we're in the season of collaboration, collaborate with Nigerian universities to ensure that as our graduates are leaving, they're able to fit into the various DOCs that are springing up. I would like to come to Engineer Amadasu. What's your view as a regulator? What's your view on all this talk about divestment?
Okay, thank you so much. And once again, good afternoon, everyone. As a regulator, I think it's good for us to put this in proper perspective. First, let's understand that there is no exit. People are only divesting. People are strategizing and coming out with a better way to engage in their businesses. And so they are looking for the aspects of their business that doesn't rank well, and therefore they are strategizing. So that is basically what they are doing, either to raise funds, either as a result of compliance to better energy, drive for better energy, or as a result of ESG, to better reposition their company, for divestment. And it's also good for us to understand that divestment is not new to the industry. There are various ways company can divest. They can go a way of diluting shares. It's also divesting. They can go in a way of abandoning some stranded assets that the regulator has taken, and also following the provisions of the law and coming out with a very transparent, competitive bidding process that have brought marginal fees asset owner, and we can see that a lot of people are doing well. Divestment can also come in form of you removing some of your shares. And if you look at, when I say they are not exiting, all the IOCs, most of them, they decide based on how they have sweated their assets, they have decided to move, to the deep offshore for reasons that is very, very strategic to them. And it is important for us to note that. Number two, as a regulator, it's important for us to also know that ours is to implement the provisions of the law. Based on what is going on, we have come out with 7 pillars. 7 pillars to say when you want to divest, after you have also worked with your co-operator or co-venture, like if you own a share, and both of you have agreed that you want to divest this share or I want to take it over, you sign off and then come out and follow what the law says. We have come out with 7 pillars that you have to follow clearly. Number one, the regulator wants to be sure
that the buyer of your asset have the financial capability, not just only to buy the asset, but to continue to operate the asset upon taking over the asset. The second one is your technical ability, capacity, to be sure that anyone taking the asset should come out with a clear work program, because one of what the regulator, we also encourage as a business enabler, as a promoter of investments, using all our regulatory tools, is to ensure that you have a clear work program that you want to subject the asset to, in order to take it from where it is and to take it, higher, either by production increase or increasing on the reserves. Number 3, we talk about data repatriation. Everybody understand and in line with the provisions of the law that when you are working on your asset, as you drill, as you explore, as you operationalize your asset, your operational data, the data you acquire does not really belong to that operator. It belongs to government. And the provision of the law says repatriate this data to NDR. But before you hand over this asset to whosoever you are diluting your share or divesting it to, the regulator wants to be sure that such data has been domiciled with the NDR in line with the provisions of the law, such that any other person taking the asset can have access to those data. Number 3, we want to be sure that there is no legal encumbrance on that asset. If there are legal encumbrances, it means when you divest the asset, the only person on the asset is going to have problem in managing the assets. The 5th one is that we want to be sure that your decommissioning and abandonment, which you have taken and booked in your booking, in your book, that certain volume of money has been taken and set aside for your decommission to decommission assets when finally you want to hand over that asset to government. We have seen cases in UK, in Ecuador, in Brazil, in New Zealand, where assets are divested. And eventually, the decommissioning liability will not be bought by government. That is not what we want. We want you to properly situate the fund that you have booked in you have removed from your book, and situate it such that when you are not there tomorrow, the person that is taking over the asset will have that fund to be able to restore the asset to its original status. The other one is talking about labor and labor issues. We don't want you to hand over an asset that is full of a lot of labor issues. So we want to properly dimension all of all this. Those are the things that the regulator will approach and say, sorry, there's a clear regulatory provision, there's a clear regulatory framework that you have to adhere to. The other one I just want to situate, in the course of this discussion, is that we hear that regulators sometimes hold on to assets and so they are not allowed the process to work. I think that is not correct. The last time my chief executive also made this presentation in NOG, it was clear. He presented that to everyone, that this entity, they have concluded their own. This entity, they have concluded their own. This other one, we are still waiting for them. The last one that someone mentioned just now, just 3 weeks ago, that's when they submitted their request for consent to the regulator. And within 1 week, using our regulatory framework, our people acted on it, and it's done, and we have forwarded it to the appropriate quarter. It's good for everyone or us to know that in asset divestment, there are opportunities. And there are also challenges. So what are the opportunities? We have mentioned here that Seplat share those they divested part of the assets. And today we see what Seplat is doing with those assets. Some of those assets that were abandoned, stranded, that operator or IOCs did not touch, we can see what the marginal feed operators are doing with them. Just going around just now, I saw a lot of them. Some of them have grown so big. So the opportunities are there. Okay. But what we have also not seen as a regulator is that we continue to focus on just only sweating the asset by way of getting production. If you do that in another 7 years, when you subject this asset to continual reservoir performance, assets, and all that, you are going to be taking yearly decrease. And so a time will come, if you don't go into exploration activity, to get more production will be difficult. The research is there. It's not only just you're producing them. You must engage in conscientious efforts to go into exploratory activities so that in another 7 years, in another 8 years, you continue to ramp up your production.
Right.
I'll stop for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Amadasun. You agree with me that we have very seasoned professionals in the panel. They are giving us very useful insights to the divestment process. I would like to hear from you, Mr. Olariwaju, on your overview on what is going on in Nigeria in terms of divestment. 3 minutes, please.
One big challenge that we have in terms of challenge
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Please, can you put your hands together for the distinguished panelists? While sharing their views, they've talked about the opportunities, a lot of value creation, job, capacity building. They've also said that there might be less restiveness due to the divestment going on, since locals will be in charge of those assets. And they've also looked at some of the challenges that may spring up in terms of financing these assets. And our regulator gave us the 7 pillars that are being used to screen the transaction going on between the DOCs and the IOCs. Okay, so I also like what you said, Mr. Olarewaju, about some of the challenges that may spring up in terms of how you said they might just rush to produce the field without going through the necessary steps. So what do you think the DOCs can do in terms of technology adoption and operation? How are they addressing these challenges of technology adoption and operational efficiency as they are taking over these assets from the IOCs? Thank you so much, Mr. Olarewaju. Please, let's put our hands together for him. So you talked about how indigenous oil companies should develop local capacity, local solutions to our local problems. And I'm hoping that the DOCs will start thinking of creative ways of building capacity such that we have enough manpower to man these assets that are being divested. The way the international oil companies are selling off their land assets, there's this fear, especially in their land assets in the Niger Delta, there's this fear that they may not address all the environmental issues that have been plaguing the Niger Delta for a couple of years, over 50 years. The environmental pollution, the social strife, the governance issues created by their operations for over 60 years. And the way DOCs are also taking over. DOCs do not have as much resources as the IOCs have, and they obviously have less experience because they are just bringing up. So there's this fear that could this environmental problem get worse or will it be better? How do you think, I'm asking this question to Mr. Ufoma, how do you think the issues of environmental, social, and governance performance can be addressed?
Thank you. I struggled a little bit with the premise of this question because I think that we fundamentally need to rethink how we address this issue. Because there's a danger that we see the responsibility for remediation and community management, etc., as the responsibility of the IOCs who are exiting. And the sense is, okay, they are going, let's kind of grab them, before they go, and oh, they've gone. And it's this sort of despair and despondency. We've been producing hydrocarbons in Nigeria for over 50 years. If you look at the laws, Nigeria is very, very unique. We have a fantastic heritage. We were one of the first emerging market countries to come up with a comprehensive revenue sharing formula where we got a fair take versus the international companies coming in. And for a very long time, Nigeria was at the forefront. I mean, a lot of people forget that we were building refineries in the 70s. We were the leader in this space for a very long time. And if you look at how the waterfall works when you sell crude oil, right? You pay your royalties. There are lots of deductions there. NDDC, there are community host fund, education tax, etc. These things have been there for a long time. All of these leakages don't go to the IOCs. They come to us as Nigerians and our institutions to manage. So after 50, 60 years, the question is, have we been good stewards of this oil wealth, and have we taken care of our fellow brothers and sisters in the creeks? And if we can look at ourselves honestly and say we haven't done a good job, or we haven't done as well as we should have, the question then is, in this next cycle, for the next 50 years, how are we going to do better to make sure that the other half of the population is not left behind? I remember when when I moved back to Nigeria, when we did our first acquisition, big OML in the Niger Delta, and we went into the creeks, talking to the communities to put in place our security arrangements. It was very interesting to listen to these guys talk about how they wanted better. Nobody likes the bunker. It's not a pleasant thing to do, but they had no opportunities. And so the question really is, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do better in the next 50 years that is to come? Part of the reason why the IOCs are rationalizing their portfolio is that technology has now opened up a lot of basins that was historically not available to them. And so there's more optionality. But that technology is also available to us in Nigeria. So for us as a new entrant and for the wider industry, I think we should change the premise of that question. What are we going to do for our country and the people in our system and our stakeholders? It's my responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's not for the IOCs. They look after their countries. They pay dividends to their shareholders. They pay taxes in their countries. This is for us.
Okay, thank you. So it's our responsibility to take care of our environment and to ensure that everything is stable. Thank you, Mr. Ufoma. Engineer Amadasun, while you were talking, when you were telling us about the 7 pillars, you mentioned some of the complexities that divestment could bring, and some of it include environmental issues, legal crises, vandalism, like we just already said about the question Mr. Ufoma addressed. And you also talked about how they have to talk about the commissioning and abandonment in the entire divestment plan. So all these things can really be a lot of work it can be daunting, it can be a lot of work, putting all this together during it. I know you've told us about the 7 pillars, but how else can the government further support the divestment process and make it easy for the DOCs that are coming in? Easier.
Okay, thank you so much. Just to take it from your last statement, how else can the government support? First of all, is to provide clarity on what the expectation of government is when you want to carry out any transaction, and to make it very transparent, to say and to bring out the procedure and the framework that you want to follow, so that when you are going to carry out that transaction, you already know that this is the route or the path you have to take. I think basically the regulator, has done that. At the beginning of this year, the chief executive of NUPRC also came out with what we call 20 points or regulatory action points that will make anyone that want to work to be able to predict exactly what you want to do. And the regulatory action plan also remove every form of uncertainty, such that when you want to do anything, this is how you want to do it. We have also automated our processes in the system in order to enhance efficiency within the system. What we are presently doing now is that we are developing guidelines for all our operations, And when these guidelines are developed, working collaboratively with the industry, they will be put on our website, such that before you put it out for any application, and follow the checklist. When you get your application to the commission, within 48 to 72 hours, commission staffs are obligated to sign off and complete that application process. We are also looking at bringing more transparency on how we account for hydrocarbon. The Federal Executive Council recently signed that one off, and the Commission is going to work with technical experts to get to the industry, where every measurement, every instrument that is used to account for hydrocarbon in the industry is properly audited, vetted, and gaps are identified, and see how we can then work with the operator to close that one out. In addition to that, our regular engagements, we are talking, just like my colleague said, taking production to the next level. We are going to be engaging the operators constantly, some on weekly basis, some on monthly basis, to identify those challenges that have not allowed you to unlock hydrocarbon within your space. That we are going to be doing with you. If it is regulatory, we quickly see how we can work on that and remove the barrier. If it is any other one that concerns other stakeholders, we'll see how we can even help you to engage them in order to remove the barrier. We are coming out clearly with all regulatory processes to remove all entry barriers, whether it's be approval process, whether it be a bidding process and all that. So all this we are doing to further enhance and how we can work with you. I think for now, that's what I will say. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent, Engineer Madasun. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So now you all know that there will soon be guidelines on the website. You can go there, check, so you know what is required of you. They are taking off all the barriers. There's going to be clarity on the expectations, so you know whether you qualify or not. And it's good to know that the government is supporting this process. And we've talked about environmental issues, and Mr. Ofoma has told us it's our responsibility. We should all see it as a responsibility to keep the environment clean. However, one of the issues with the DOCs is still the communal issues, and I'm taking this question to Mr. Ibidapo Obi. How do you think there will be less sabotage and vandalism in our infrastructure when the DOCs take over?
I'm wondering the best way to answer your question. It's very similar to Ufoma's question, and I don't want my answer to be identical to his. So I'll make my answer similar. I think, first of all, it's a mindset. There's a mindset issue. We need to ask ourselves, have the IOCs managed the communal issues well? So if the answer is no, then why do we assume that the Nigerian companies would somehow handle it worse? because the question, that's how, the question kind of made me feel like, how would we Nigerian companies now handle the communal issues? If you look at our history, I speak for Wando in particular. Actually, I tell another quick story. In 2008, along with our partner Energia, we began production in a marginal field, OML 56, a Bendo field. At that time, there were communal issues in that community. We drilled our well. When we started extended well test, we had to truck about 8 kilometers before our pipeline could be complete. At this time, we knew that the community issues that existed then, we couldn't approach it the same way that IOCs had approached community issues. We started what, thankfully, because also we have to give kudos to the government in the way the PIA was developed. It seems like a sidebar, but there was a lot of engagement with indigenous companies, with IOCs, with the communities. At that time, and we were very involved in engaging with the government, we started a host trust fund. It exists till today. In 2009, it was the first. That we give a percentage of our profits to a trust fund that had the community, the government, as well as ourselves and our partners. Every year, you would look at what's in the account. You would select projects that you carry out, will be monitored, and these projects were carried out. We're in 2024. We have not had any community issues to date. We're producing, we're drilling, and everybody is happy. So it comes to, there's a sense of ownership. And I honestly believe that as a Nigerian company, as Nigerian companies, we have more of a sense of ownership in the areas where we operate. It's not something that we have to learn. This is our home. Your home is your home, and you want it to be nice. So that's the kind of mindset that I believe indigenous companies are taking.